Are illegal immigrants in the United States more likely to commit crime? Tune in today to Immigration Wednesdays to find out the answer. Hi, I'm attorney Jeff Peek with the Peek & Tone Law Firm, and a lot of conversation is given in the last 4 years due to comments by President Trump about illegal immigrants to whether or not illegal immigrants or the presence of illegal immigrants in our communities has an impact on the rise of crime that we see. And it's interesting to note that they recently did a Gallup poll, and 42% of respondents said yes, illegal immigrants increase the amount of crime that happens in a community. 50% said they didn't think so, and 7% said they thought they might actually decrease the amount of crime. So what is the truth? Well, it's interesting work being done over at the CATO Institute, analyzing data out of Texas Department DPS, which DPS controls basically all the crime records for Texas. And Texas is one of the few states that actually records the information of the person's immigration status. A lot of the other states haven't got caught up yet, and that data is not available. So as far as the CATO Institute knows, Texas is the only state that actually records this data. So they actually can look at the data and figure out, well, what impact is illegal immigration having on the crime rate here in Texas? Pretty interesting results, and I thought I'd share them with you here today. What you see behind me is conviction rates per 100,000 people in population, okay? And you have 5 different rates: 535 per 100,000, 782 per 100,000, and 1,422 per 100,000. Which of these different groups do you think represents illegal immigrants, legal immigrants, and native-born U.S. citizens here in Texas? This is for Texas only. Well, interestingly enough, the lowest crime rate per 100,000, conviction rate, I should say, per 100,000 is legal immigrants to the United States. Actually represent the least likely to be convicted of crimes in the United States compared to illegal immigrants and native U.S. born citizens. The next highest category, 782 out of 100,000 convictions, 782 convictions per 100,000 belong to illegal immigrants. Which leaves us with the staggering, interesting thought that native U.S. born citizens here in Texas are much more likely to commit crime than their legal immigrant and illegal immigrant counterparts. So I think in some sense you can say the myth that illegal immigrants are more likely to commit crime compared to U.S. citizens or legal immigrants is somewhat untrue. Slightly higher than legal immigrant, but actually lower than native U.S. born citizens. Now, to be fair, because sometimes I think when people talk about information statistics, they like to shine light and make it present their argument the best way. The counter argument to this would be, well, technically, Jeff, every person who is illegally present in the United States is committing a crime under federal code, and that is technically true. So if you wanted to make that argument, they would say 100,000 out of 100,000 illegal immigrants are committing a crime because they've all broken the law. But I think if we just are focusing on property crime, violent crime, drug crime, the crimes that we really think of crimes that affect us in our daily lives, and ignore that kind of talk, then you really see what the real number would be. I think it's important and interesting to note that too, these are based on estimates because we don't technically know the full number of illegal immigrants in the United States. We make guesstimates based on all sorts of data. It could be that it is possible that maybe the illegal immigrant population is much lower than we estimate. If that was true, then this number would go up, obviously. But most people who study this thing believe, if anything, we're probably undercounting or underestimating the number of illegal immigrants in the United States. So I just think the data is pretty interesting. You can check it out yourself. This is going to be a paper going to be published next year. But you can look at it right now at cato.org/working papers. And draw your own conclusions and make those. But I think it's important that we speak honestly about the value that immigrants bring to the country and not just try to fearmonger. I think it's also interesting, there's other studies going out there. There's one that found out that by the passage of DACA, they actually saw the crime rate go down when you offered immigrants the opportunity to have a work permit. So I think there's some other studies out there along that lines. And so when people are here legally allowed to work, they're much, much, much less likely to be involved in crime. Now that doesn't mean there aren't any immigrants committing crime. Of course, that happens. I'm a criminal defense attorney as well as an immigration attorney, and I represent people who unfortunately are not U.S. citizens in this country, and so that does happen. So we're not trying to paint just a rosy rainbows and unicorns pictures, but we wanted you to have the real information and real data and not just listen to rhetoric. All right, that's all for Immigration Wednesdays. Hope you have a great week.